Hi everybody, this is Professor Millman. In this video, I'll be going over a review for the first exam in MAT 161.5. As we read each question, I encourage that you pause and then get the solution and then continue with the video. Alright, let's start. First question. The national debt of the US doubled between 1980 and 1985. The debt was about $908 billion in 1980, and it's asking us, using this information, estimate the debt in 1985. Okay, so we're taking 908 billion and we double it. So when we do this, we get 1816 billion, correct? All right, so that's not a standard form. So we have a couple of choices. So I would encourage you to first write it out in standard form. Billion means 9 additional figures. Since there is no decimal point, those figures will become zeros. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to count periods. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 periods of 3. That means there are 12 places. So this is going to be in trillions. So it is 1 trillion and 816 billion. Looking at the choices, let's go ahead, and it's asking which one is the answer. It's not 18 trillion. Is it 1.8? Yes. Putting a decimal point just means that it's not a whole part. 1 is the whole, which is 1 full trillion, and 0.8 of a trillion, that's where you get 8 something hundred billion. Okay, so yes, this is good. And then quickly looking at the other ones. So when we have million, and then here you got 1,000. So this is 6 figures. This is 3 figures. So together it gives you 9 figures. So that will give you a billion. But we have a trillion. In scientific notation, this is actually the same thing as that. It has 9 figures, so it is still a billion. And the last one you can see is 1,800,000, which is neither a billion nor a trillion. So that's also not the answer. So the only choice that gives us what we want is choice B. Alright, let's move on. Second question is asking us this. A certain kind of bacteria cell divides every 2 days. So divides meaning split it into 2. So it doubles every 2 days. Starting with 1 cell, how many cells will there be after 4 weeks? So we're looking at 4 weeks. 4 weeks is 28 days. Correct? So 28 days. And 28 days, it's going to double every 2 days. Every 2 days, so divided by 2, so 14 times it will double. Correct? So it doubles 14 times because it's every 2 days. So what does it mean to double? That means you're going to be multiplying it by 2. And it doesn't say what it starts with, right? It just says a certain kind of bacteria, so it's only 1. So it doubles, just like in the first lesson. It doubles exactly 14 times. So that is equivalent of using an exponent, 1 times 2 to the power of 14. Here I pulled up the decimal scientific calculator, so it will be easier for you to see how we're doing the calculations. So it's going to be 1 times anything is whatever, but I'm still going to put that in here in case you do not start with the 1. You don't need to put it in this question, but let's say if in your question you asked with, let's say you start with 5. So we'll do 5 times. You understand? That's going to be your initial value, and then you're going to do this 14 times. All right, so that will give us 16,384 bacteria. Does that make sense? All right, let's look at the next question. Rachel invested $65,598 in penny stocks she saw her investment double every year for 3 years. So again, a doubling concept. Calculate the value of her investment after 3 years. Round your answer to the nearest 1,000. So it's doubling every single year. So just like in the previous question here, we're going to be doubling, but we're starting with $65,598, and then we're going to be multiplying it by doubling. So it's going to multiply by 2, and it's going to happen 3 years in a row. Okay, you understand? So it's just that. So you can just enter it like that, or you can use an exponent. By the way, doubling 3 times means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, and multiplication commutes, meaning you can do it first. So it's going to actually multiply by the factor of 8. So I'm going to bring up my calculator right here and just do that. 65,598. Again, you can just multiply it 3 times like that. Oops. And here you get 524,784. It says round to the nearest $1,000. $1,000. So that means we need to round that number 4. So that will be 525,000. 525. So let me write that number. Okay, so that's here, and then we are rounding to the nearest 1,000. Oh, I copied it wrong, right? So let's look at this again. 524. Okay, 24. So this is the number that that's a 1,000 digit. Okay, since there's a 7 right after, it's going to round it to 525,000, which is the answer, which is the last one. Okay. Question number 4 is just a quick rounding question. So you want to round it to nearest 10,000. So this right here is 1,000. This is going to be the 10,000, and then 100,000 and a million. Okay. So if we're rounding that digit right here, 0, we'll look at the number that right after, which is 8. So we round it up. So it should be $7,410,000, which will be choice 8. Okay, just a little review of rounding. All right. Pollster selected 188 people at random to participate in a blind test to compare Pepsi to Coca-Cola. Every person stated a preference of one soda before blind taste test. Each was then given 2 unlabeled cups of soda, one of which contained Pepsi and the other one contained Coca-Cola. The results of the test is given in the table. All right, so we have this, what we call a 2x2 table or contingency table. So whenever we have a question like this, we can go ahead and add all the totals. So when we are reading those statements, then we can refer to the correct columns and correct totals. All right, so let's do that. So 54 plus 16 gives us 70. 30 plus 88 gives us 118. For a grand total of 188. And then for the columns, is going to be 54, so it's 84, and this one is 104, for a total of 188. Okay, alrighty. In a blind test, let's read the statements. In a blind test, 45% of participants chose Pepsi. Okay, so here is the total number of participants, which is 188. All right, that's the total, and chose Pepsi would be 70. All right, so that means it is 70 out of 188. Remember, to get a percent, you set it up as a fraction. So 70 divided by 188, that will give us 37%, about. So that statement is going to be false. All right, statement number 3. 64% of people who said they prefer Pepsi before the test really do. All right, so here we're going to look at people who said they prefer Pepsi. This is going to be our reference value. This is the denominator. So say they prefer right here. So there are 84 people. So that's going to be our denominator, 84. How many of them actually chose Pepsi? Well, many of them, but not all. This is 54. Let's highlight it. Right, so 54 of those who like Pepsi actually chose it. So we're gonna do this as a fraction, and that is 64%. All right, so this is about 64%. So that statement is true. Okay. Last statement, more than 50% of all participants blindly preferred Coca-Cola to Pepsi. So blind test is going to be right here. So we're focusing on what they actually chose. And it says more than 50% prefer Coca-Cola. Now Coca-Cola is 118, which is more than a half, because it's 188. If you want to get exact percentage, it's 118 out of 188, correct? So it's 118 prefer Coke over 188, which is actually just the what we call a complement of the other one. Remember we calculated Pepsi earlier? That was 37%. So Coca-Cola is 63%. So the statement 3 would also be true. So we're going to choose statement 2 and 3 only. So that would be choice D. Moving on, number 6. Result from 2010 research study showed that an average of 1 in 500 Americans is HIV positive. Use this information to decide the best estimate for the percent. All right, here you can just go ahead and set it up as a fraction. So it is 1 out of 500. And we put that in a calculator. Let's take one step at a time. We get a decimal first. Do not rush. This is where the mistakes can be easily made, which you want to avoid. So it's 0.002. That's a decimal. If you want to convert this into percent, which is actually what the question is asking, we can multiply it on a calculator or move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So I'm going to put this right here. Let me clear this all. So it's 1 divided by 500, right? And then you take that answer and you're multiplying it by 100. Like that. And trust your calculator. Your answer is 0.2. When you see something like this, I know it's not a common percent. It just means it's less than a percent, but don't go ahead and jump to select something that you feel is right. No, it's not about your feeling, it's what you see. You see this, you select that. Don't fight it. That's what it is. So the answer is 0.2%. All right, number 7. The number of students in a freshman class at Alpha University last year was 3,562. This year, there will be 20% more freshmen at that university. The freshman class at Beta University was 5,000, and this year we expect a decrease by 20%. And we would like to know which school has more freshmen and by how many. All right, so let's write this briefly like this. So Alpha is 3,562, and it's going to increase by 20%, while Beta is now larger, but it's going to decrease by 20%. Remember when we did the percent in lesson, I think 3, Paul and Eduardo, maybe even lesson 2, right? Adding a percent, subtracting a percent. You can do it various ways, all right? You can do a traditional way where you're going to take, let me pull up the calculator right here, for let's say Alpha University. So you can take, one moment, I need to move this right here. So you can go ahead and take, let's say, 3,562, and then you can add 20%. There are so many ways you could do this. You can use decimals calculator, like I'm doing here. Note how I'm going to write it. I'm going to write it a couple of ways. Okay, so that's one way you can compute it. All right. You can use 3,562 and you can multiply it by 20%, which either you use the percent symbol or, as we've done in class, by multiplying it by 0.2 and then adding 3,562. All right, you see it? Find the percent and add. And finally, if you want to be really, really sophisticated, you can go ahead and multiply this by 1.2. Remember, the 20% increase can be written as 1.2, which is a 20% increase. So there are 3 ways to do it. Do it the way you are comfortable, but don't just, have a strategy, right? Have a strategy. So it's 4274. I rounded to the nearest person. Okay, well, the other one is going to be 5,000. I'm going to do the next one the way that most students would do this, which is taking the amount of people, multiplying it by 20%, and then taking that amount, and then since it's decreased, we're going to subtract that answer. So we got 4,017. All right, so alpha has more, so we're going to eliminate these 3 choices, and it has more, about 250 students, right? About 257 actually. So that would be first choice. All right. Okay, so this question should look familiar, about the cashback bonus. I think it was the second lesson. So we have one card, Visa. It gives us 5% cash back on grocery and restaurants, and 1% other. You typically charge $500. Of $500 charged, $200 were spent on groceries, and the rest, which is $300, was spent on other. Question is, calculate the cash back. Well, the cash back would be 5% of 200 plus 1% of 300. You see, 5% and 1%. Notice how you convert percent into decimals carefully. So that would be $10, and that would be $3, for a total of 13. All right, so the question number 9, the table gives estimates of the population and internet users of 3 countries. It's a little outdated data, so it's 2015. All right, so we have 3 countries. You want to know which country is the average citizen most likely to be an internet users. Remember we talked about water per person in that lesson 1.5? This one is talking about internet per person. And we want to know which one has the highest ratio, okay, of internet per person. The more there are users of internet per population, the more it is, okay? So nowadays, the numbers are close to 100%, but it's not 100%. Notice when you do look at the internet divided by the people, since you're talking about people, you're actually finding a percent. So which one has the highest percent of internet users? So either way, you're taking the internet and you're dividing it by the population. So it is, so let's do it for each one of them. So we're gonna do internet divided by population, and you can leave it as fraction or you can leave it as a percent, okay? So once you do the first one, which is 30 divided by 35. All right, so if you want to convert that into percent, go ahead, doesn't matter. Or leave it as a decimal, which is 0.86 about. All right, for India, we got to be a little bit careful because one is in million and the other one is in billion. So that one does require sort of having this, whenever you do the ratio, you want to make sure you're using the same units. So it's 155. I'm going to write it like this. That's a million. So it's 6 figures. And a billion is going to be 9 figures. 2 of them is 2 and an 8. And then you had an additional 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you separate that like that. Now you can see it's 1,280 million. All right, we're gonna cross out this, we're gonna cross out that, and we're left with 125 divided by 1280. So it is 0.098. I just did an extra decimal point because it was quite small, but it is less than Canada. It is less than Canada because that's about, India is about 10%, while Canada is about 86%. For the US, we don't have to change this into millions in a standard form, I mean, because both of them are already in millions. So you're just gonna take 224 and divide it by 321. So it's about 698. I should have left Canada also having a additional number. But here, which country has the most? Well, Canada does. It's almost 86%. Let's move on. Comparing, it's referring to the same question, right? Yeah. So comparing the population of India to the United States, which of the following is correct? So that's when, remember that lesson when we compared population and the water usage, and there was this ratio. We'll look at China and the US, China and the world, US and the world, that stuff. So here we're comparing India to the US. All right, so India is larger. So if I don't see percent being used, so I'll write up the larger country on top and the smaller country on the bottom, and then we'll divide. So that's India. This is the US. Notice that these millions can cancel, making our division faster. So it would be 1280 divided by 321. So it's about 4 times. So India is about 4 times as big as the United States. All right, so that statement C, it's worded a little, I don't think, appropriately, but the idea is that there are 4 times as many people living in India compared to the United States, because Americans can, we're talking about North, South America, India, also, it's a big continent. I think it's more appropriate to say the population of a country is 4 times the population of the other country. Okay. Alrighty, moving on. Number 11. The table below shows the survey results of a group of 900 people regarding the TV preferences. It's asking us what percent of people who prefer streaming video are under 35 years old. Round your answer to the nearest tenth of a percent. Okay, so let's break this down. What percent of people who prefer streaming? You see how I'm highlighting whatever follows the word of? If you notice, I've done that in a lesson as well, focusing on the denominator. So people who prefer streaming is here, or are here. You understand? This is what we're looking at. How many people prefer streaming in this table? Well, it's 354 plus 92. So that's a total of 446 people. How many of them are under 35 years old in that category? 354. So it's 354 out of 446. So 354 divided by 446. So that is 79%. 79. I put the percent symbol. It's 0.7937. I think we agreed to use 4 places. And then once you convert that into percent, that's where we get 79.4. It's a little tricky here because there are two choices that are close, but this one would have a correct rounding, 79.4%. All right, so this is the question on the water footprint. So this is directly from the lesson. It's just using a different country. So it's asking us, number 12, calculate Russia's water footprint per person in cubic meters. So if you remember from the lesson, it's the water divided by the people. Water is right here, just like in the lesson. You have 10 to the 9th, so it's 298. And then you got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 9 zeros. Be very careful, okay? Don't rush. Write down the numbers. So it's 369 divided by population, which is in thousands. So that means you have 3 additional zeros. All right, so we cancel this out, and then we divide. So it's 498. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, divided by 140, 312. So that is 2,123. And that's it. Yeah, about. So that's people 23. Oh, it's 24. They round. If you're rounding, it's going to be 24. And that's cubic meters of water per capita person. Notice I think that number is close to the number that we got for the US in the lesson. Now here it's a comma. Comma is 1,000. Period is a decimal point. Don't get confused the way the number is written. Alrighty. Number 13. If the world population was 6.9 billion people, what percentage of the world population lived in Russia? You gotta look at the key words. Percentage of the world population. Okay, so the world population is what's going to go in the denominator, and we're going to write this out in a standard form. We have done this before, so this is a review. This is 0.9, so you don't add 9 zeros, you add 8 zeros, because one of them, 9, is already takes a place. There are 6 full billions followed by 9 places. Okay, and Russia is 140,312,000. Notice you see 1,000. You don't want to ignore that. Put this carefully in a calculator. You can also cross out those zeros. All right. So we're going to get 140,312 divided by 6900 and then 000. All right, the other 3 zeros I canceled. You could have left them. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that you do not ignore them as, you know, you're writing your fraction. And you get 0.02. Let's do 2 more digits. 0.3. And then you convert that into percent. Multiply by 100. So you get 2.03%, which rounded to the nearest tenth is about 2% of the world population. Also think of this that way, just like we did in class. Russia is part of the world. World is the denominator. It's your reference value. Okay, so that's a question directly from the lesson on Affordable Health Care Act, I believe lesson 1.3 or 1.4. So we have a family that's making $54,629. The federal poverty line for that year was $24,250. So the first question is asking us to calculate the worker's family income as a percentage of poverty line. So as a percentage of poverty line is going to be what? So again, look at how we have this written. Off the poverty line. You see how, you know, the whole theme of this chapter is kind of going around fraction and setting them up correctly. So poverty line is what's going to go in the denominator, and the family is making more. That means when we convert that into percentage, their percentage is going to be higher than 100. Now where are they going to fall? So we're going to open this up, and we're going to take their income. We're going to divide it by the poverty line, so it's 24,250. All right, then we get 2 point something, right? So it means 2 times the 2.25 times the poverty line. Writing this as a percent is about 225. So that means they're falling. Oh, by the way, that's the answer, right? So that's the answer. So 225 will be in this category. So they expected to pay 7.2% of the income that they're earning, income. And that would be per year. All right, so this is a calculation that you also have to be careful. Do not rush with this calculation. When you want to do 7.2%, you either use something like that, like decimals, where you can put percent off and then you can just go ahead and enter this. If you have to use a regular calculator, you do 7.2, divide this by 100. Don't do it in your head. Don't write it as 0.72. Let the calculator do the job. It's 0.072, and then you multiply it by the amount. So it's 3,933. This is per year, all right, but it's asking us to do per month. So therefore, you have to split this into 12. So you divide this by 12, and then you got about $328 per month. You understand? So check that lesson. That's exactly what we did over there. Alrighty, let's move on. Brazil is the most populous country in Latin America with a population of about 202.8 million. Brazil has the highest GDP of about $2,350 billion. Calculate Brazil's GDP per capita. Look at the language. GDP per capita. Per means fraction, meaning division. We take GDP, we divide it by people. And when we do so, we want to make sure, guys, you see in this chapter, we were using magnitude in a various way. So millions and billions, you want to write them in a standard form. So the GDP is going to be so it's like this. It's 2,350 followed by a billion, meaning that you're going to include another 9 significant figures, 369. Alrighty? And then you're going to divide it by the Brazil's population, which is 208, and then 0.8 would be 8. That one place, million means 6. 1 is already taken out by 8, so you have 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that gives you the population. You can also cross out some zeros if you like, and then put that in a calculator. Notice the GDP of Brazil is in trillions of dollars, if you want to pronounce that word. So it's 2,350 billion. But now, since I crossed out a couple of zeros, it's less for me to put in. Okay, divided by 202 and 800. So it's about 11,588 per person. Okay, it's if you round it, it's going to be 588. All right, so just pay attention on the language of how you set up your fraction and those magnitudes. Study them. What does million means? What a billion means? What 1,000 means? Janice and her friend rent a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, $2,100. They have to sign a new lease. Their options: a 1-year lease with a 4% increase, 2-year lease with 7.75 rent increase. If they choose one option, one-year option, how much would their rent be after the second year, assuming they will be offered the same renewal rate lease next year? So there's some information that you do not need in this question. You're talking about a 1-year lease, so that means we just have 4% 2 times in a row. All right. So the way you can do this a long way, or you can do it a short way. So a long way is you can go ahead and find what 4% increase is, and then add it to 2,100. Let me clear this. So 2,100 multiplied by 4%, so it's $84. So it's going to become $2,184, so $2,184. And then you just repeat the same steps again. There's nothing wrong doing that. Okay, that's perfectly fine. So you're going to go ahead, 2184. You're going to multiply by 4% again. So that's 8736. And then you're going to add to the new rent. Oops, let me clear this. So 2001.84, and then you add 87.36, so you get 2271, which is that choice. All right. Alternatively, this is perfectly fine. Most students will do it that way. But if you want to go a little bit quicker using some concept that we covered in the lesson, you can do it like this. This is the first rent, right? Multiplied by 1.04. Where does 1 come from? That's 100%. You get the answer, and then take that answer and then multiply it by 1.04 again. And you get the same result. Every time you multiply by 1.04, the price goes up by 4%. All right, so again, we got Janice and her friend Jane start making dress and skirt belt to sell on Etsy. It cost them $11 for the leather and other materials to make the belt. They decide to mark the price of the belts up in order to make a 68% profit. Okay, so that's for the belts. How much should they sell the belts for? So it's $11 that it costs to them, and then you want to make a profit, so you increase it by 68%. Again, you can do it a traditional way. Find 68% of $11 and then add 11. Or you can take $11 and multiply by 1.68. Remember the difference between Eduardo's method and the Paula's method from the lesson? So this is it. Both will give you the same answer of 1848. Almost there. Number 19. Some belts that originally sold for $20 after the profit markup didn't sell for 66 months. On the website, they marked these belts down by 12%. How much are they now? Same idea. You can do it a traditional way, which is perfectly fine. Get the answer, and whatever that answer is, subtract it. So 12% multiplied by $20, so that's $2.40. And then subtract that from here, so that would be $17.60. Or you can do it a quicker way, where you take this result and you just multiply by 0.88. What's 88 means? Well, it's 88%. If something is 12% off, that means it's worth 88% of the original price. Either way is okay. All right, a contingency table for 20 and 21. So we have man and woman that smoke and do not in New York State. This data is also outdated. It's from 2011, but we're going to use it to answer this question. All right, so again, let's read this carefully. It says, what percent of men in New York State are smokers? This is what you want to highlight. Of men. Here are the men. Here. Those that smoke and those who do not. If you add them together, that would be about 10 million men total. 10 million men in New York State. All right, and the question is asking how many of them are smokers. 1.95 out of 10. Okay, you put that in a calculator. And you get 19.5%. See, it's about reading the question carefully. Compare the percentage of smokers who are men and the percentage of smokers who are women. So now I'm going to erase this, and I'm going to focus my attention on smokers, because it says of smokers. These are the smokers. how many smokers are there in the in New York State? Well, it's 195 plus 195 plus 1.60, so that's going to be 3.55. Okay, let me double check that. All right, so out of those, what percentage is men and which percentage are the women? So the men smokers is 1.95 out of 3.55. All right, and women smokers is 1.60 of 3.5. The rest. So if we convert those in percentages, I'm just going to use a calculator to save us all time. So that would be 54.9%. And the rest are going to be women, which is 45.1. So there are more men smokers. So that would eliminate this. They're not the same. And by how much? Well, if you subtract this, it will be about 9.8%, right? So 54.9 minus 45.1 is about 9.8. So the answer is going to be A. There are more men smokers than women smokers by about 10%. All right, another percentage increase problem. A particular mutual fund is supposed to go up 4%. It turns out to be true. What would be investment worth if it's 10,000 to begin with? This is not too bad. Just be comfortable with these questions. It's $400 increase, so it's going to become 10,400. All right, you can also multiply by 1.04 and you'll obtain the same answer. The most expensive apartment in Manhattan rent for $5,000 a month. This is outdated data, okay? There are some people with rent control that pay into $50. Which of the following statement is true? Well, they're using the word times. When you have the number that's used times, that means you want to put the larger number over the smaller number. So we got 5,000 over 2,500. All right, so that's expensive over the other, so it's 20 times. All right, so the more expensive apartment rent for 20 times as much as the cheaper apartment. All right, 20 times. Remember the word times that was used in the lesson? So here it goes. All right, we have two more questions. Number 24, a group of friends gather at the restaurant. Samantha is trying, and each person ordered an lunch and a drink. After the meal, the waiter brought out a bill for the entire group. Samantha is trying to figure out how much she must pay towards the bill. She ordered a meal for $17, a drink for $8, so her thing was $25. The restaurant charges a service charge of 22% and a tax of 8.875%. Calculate how much does Samantha need to pay for her order. You basically want to add the service charge and the tax, and here the assumption that both are computed as a percent of the price of the meal. So that means that you can calculate 22% and 8.875% separately, or you can add those 2% together. And add it on to the bill. So we're going to do 30.85% converted as a decimal, multiplied by 25, and then you add the 25 and you'll get the answer. You can put this whole thing in a calculator, so you can do it like this: 30875 times 25. You see, your calculator can do it all at one shot, or you can do 25 and you can multiply by 1.30875. Study that. That will be helpful, you know, to learn something that you might have not used before, sort of just understanding how the percents work. So it's $32.72. And finally, the last question. It's about married, divorced, attended community college or not. It's asking us what percentage of people with bachelor's degrees who did not attend community college were separated, divorced, and widowed. So it's two variables that are not related that being putting together in that table. Doesn't matter. We just go to along with this thing. So it says what percentage of people who did not attend community college. So this is going to be our denominator, or they did not attend community college. So we're going to go ahead and add those up. So that's the total is 234,400 people. How many of them were separated, divorced, or widowed? 66,000. So it's 66,500 out of those who did not attend community college. So we're going to put that in the calculator. I'm just using my hand calculator. So, oops, actually, let me just put this on decimals. So 66,500 divided by 234,400, which is about 28.4%, which is that answer. Alrighty, and that's the end.